It's 3 a.m. You're lying in bed, scrolling through your banking app, wondering how your college roommate just bought a house while you're still trying to figure out why your credit card balance keeps growing despite your best intentions. Every swipe shows someone else winning. A promotion, a wedding, a down payment, a vacation you can't afford. And you're just lying there, doing the math in your head, wondering if you're the only one who feels like they're falling behind. Or maybe you're at a dinner party, listening to someone casually mention their savings account balance, and you're sitting there thinking, well, at least I have money in my checking account for about 12 minutes after payday. Today I'm gonna show you the real numbers, not the Instagram highlight reel, not what your parents think it should be. The actual financial reality of being 30 in America right now. Here's something nobody tells you when you're turning 30. Your parents probably bought their first house in their 20s, had minimal student loan debt, and could realistically expect their income to provide a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. If you're 30 today, you're navigating a completely different financial landscape. Student loan balances that would have been unthinkable 30 years ago. Housing costs that consume massive portions of your income, and economic realities that have fundamentally changed what it means to be financially successful. Your parents' financial playbook is obsolete. The game has changed, the rules are different, and most people are still trying to run the old plays. Let me show you what the numbers actually look like, not the fantasy, the reality. Meet Michael. He's 31. Software engineer, makes $75,000 a year, above average for his age. By all accounts, he's doing well. He went to a good school, he got a good job, he did everything right. Michael has $65,000 in student loans from his graduate program. When he graduated, he chose an income-driven repayment plan because the standard payment seemed overwhelming. His monthly payment was $420. Felt manageable. He could afford it. 3 years later, despite making every single payment on time, Michael's loan balance grew from $65,000 to $68,500. He was paying money every month to watch his debt increase. The interest was growing faster than his payments could keep up. Imagine the feeling of being responsible, making your payments, doing everything you're supposed to do, and watching your debt grow. It's not just discouraging, it's financially devastating. When Michael finally realized what was happening and switched to the standard repayment plan, his monthly payment jumped to $780. That's over 15% of his gross income. About 20% of his take-home pay after taxes. And he's not alone. The average 30-year-old is carrying about $42,000 in student loan debt. That's not the amount they borrowed. That's what they still owe after years of payments. A huge percentage of 30-year-olds aren't even on the standard repayment plan. Because $400 a month is too much for their budget, they've switched to income-driven plans that extend their repayment period, and often result in their loan balances actually growing over time due to interest. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. It's not just about the monthly payment. It's about how the complexity of repayment options can trap borrowers in cycles of growing debt. And how this affects major life decisions like when to get married, when to buy a house, when to start a family. Now let's talk about Sarah. Sarah represents the median 30-year-old experience almost perfectly. She's 30, works in marketing, makes $58,000 a year, right at the national average for her age group. She graduated in 2016 with $35,000 in student loans. She's been making payments for 8 years. Her monthly student loan payment is $380. She also carries $3,800 in credit card debt. Before you start thinking Sarah is financially irresponsible, let me break down how she accumulated this debt. $1,500 came from her car transmission failing 6 months after her warranty expired. Because apparently, car parts have a supernatural ability to sense the exact moment you're no longer covered. $800 accumulated from medical expenses when she had to go to urgent care twice in 1 year. Her high-deductible health plan decided that being sick was clearly a lifestyle choice she should pay for. The remaining $1,500 represents what financial experts euphemistically call lifestyle inflation. But what Sarah calls trying to maintain her sanity while adulting. This includes occasionally buying groceries without checking her bank balance first, replacing her laptop when it decided to crash during an important work presentation, and yes, sometimes ordering takeout after working a 10-hour day because the alternative was crying into a bowl of cereal. Sarah's minimum credit card payment is about $120 monthly, but here's where the mathematics of being 30 gets really depressing. At 22% interest, if Sarah only makes minimum payments, she'll be paying off this debt for over 18 years. She'll end up paying more than $8,000 total for that transmission repair and those urgent care visits. The real problem isn't that Sarah is financially irresponsible. The real problem is that she's spending 38% of her take-home pay on rent for a one-bedroom apartment, another 15% on her car payment and insurance, and roughly 10% on student loans and credit card payments combined. This leaves her with almost nothing for building an emergency fund, which means the next unexpected expense will likely end up on a credit card too. The cycle continues, the debt grows, the stress compounds. Now let's talk about the number that keeps financial advisors up at night: savings. Financial experts say that by age 30, you should have the equivalent of your annual salary saved. If you're making $60,000 a year, you should theoretically have $60,000 sitting in savings accounts and investment portfolios. Ready for the reality check? Only about 14% of Americans have at least $100,000 in savings. And more than half of all Americans can't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without going into debt. Not a major medical crisis, not losing your job, a $1,000 emergency, car tires, a laptop, a dental procedure. Half of your peers can't handle it. The median savings balance for all Americans is around $60,000, but that includes people of all ages, including those nearing retirement who have had decades to accumulate wealth. The median retirement account balance for someone in their 30s? About $14,000. That's not a typo. $14,000 to fund potentially 40 years of retirement. Using the traditional 4% withdrawal rule, that $14,000 would generate about $560 annually in retirement income. That's $46 per month. $46 monthly wouldn't cover a cell phone bill, let alone housing, food, healthcare, and all the other expenses that come with being alive. The advice to have a year's salary saved by 30 assumes that 30-year-olds have been able to save consistently throughout their 20s. It assumes they weren't dealing with entry-level salaries, student loan payments, high rent costs, and all the expenses that come with establishing adult life. Think about the mathematics here. If you graduated college at 22 with student loans, spent your early 20s earning $30,000 to $40,000 annually while paying $600 monthly in student loans and $1,200 monthly in rent, when exactly were you supposed to accumulate this magical savings? It's like telling someone to run a marathon while carrying a 50-pound backpack, and then wondering why they're not setting speed records. Now let's talk about the biggest wealth-building tool of previous generations: home ownership. The home ownership rate for adults under 35 has dropped to about 37%, the lowest level in decades. Nearly 2/3 of 30-year-olds are still renting, not by choice, because home ownership has become mathematically impossible for most people their age. The average home price in America is now over $500,000. To put that in perspective, a typical 30-year-old would need a $100,000 down payment to put 20% down and avoid private mortgage insurance. Most 30-year-olds don't have $100,000 in their checking account. Most 30-year-olds don't have $10,000 in their checking account. But wait, it gets worse. Even if you could somehow scrape together that down payment, the average interest rate for a 30-year mortgage is around 6.5 to 7%. That means monthly payments on a $500,000 house with 20% down would be approximately $2,600 per month, not including property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Remember Sarah, our median 30-year-old earning $58,000? Her take-home pay after taxes is probably around $3,800 monthly. A $2,600 mortgage payment would consume nearly 70% of her entire take-home income. Financial experts recommend spending no more than 28% of gross income on housing. For Sarah, that would be about $1,350 monthly. This is why so many 30-year-olds are still living in apartments that cost $1,800 to $2,000 per month in rent. They're spending 40 to 50% of their income on housing. Not because they're making poor choices, because those are literally the only options available in most markets. Previous generations viewed their 30s as the time to buy a house, start a family, and build wealth through home ownership. Today's 30-year-olds are watching their rent payments disappear into landlords' pockets month after month. Building zero equity. While home prices continue rising faster than their ability to save for down payments, many 30-year-olds find themselves in a bizarre financial limbo. They earn too much to qualify for first-time homebuyer assistance programs, but too little to actually afford homes in the areas where they work. Stuck, renting, waiting. The rental market itself has become increasingly difficult for 30-year-olds. Landlords now routinely require credit scores above 700, proof of income at least 3 times the monthly rent, and application fees that can run several $100s per apartment. For 30-year-olds dealing with student loan impacts on their credit scores, finding acceptable rental housing has become a challenge that previous generations never faced. This housing crisis is fundamentally altering life timelines. People are delaying marriage because combining 2 sets of student loan payments doesn't improve anyone's debt-to-income ratio for mortgage qualification. They're postponing having children because raising kids in small rental apartments while paying off student loans and credit card debt feels financially irresponsible. They're waiting for some mythical better time that never seems to arrive. They're watching their peers in lower-cost areas buy houses and start families while feeling trapped in expensive cities where their careers are located. The jobs are here. The affordable homes are not. The gap between financial advice and financial reality for 30-year-olds has become so wide that it's almost comical. Financial planning websites cheerfully suggest that 30-year-olds should be saving $800 monthly toward retirement alone, not counting emergency funds or other savings goals. $800 monthly for someone earning the median income of $58,000 represents about 25% of their take-home pay after taxes. Meanwhile, back in the real world, that same person is spending 40% of their income on rent, 10% on student loans, and trying to maintain a social life that doesn't involve exclusively eating peanut butter sandwiches in their studio apartment. The idea of having $800 left over each month for savings exists in the same fantasy realm as unicorns and affordable health care. This creates what I call the financial advice paradox for 30-year-olds. Every article, podcast, and financial guru tells them they should be saving more, investing aggressively, and building wealth for the future. But the actual financial constraints they face make following this advice practically impossible without making sacrifices that would negatively impact their career prospects, relationships, or mental health. Let's talk about something that affects everything else. Credit scores. Recent data shows that student loan delinquency has caused credit score drops of 100 points or more for over 1 million borrowers. People who previously had credit scores of 720 or higher saw average declines of nearly 180 points. This means that 30-year-olds who might have qualified for good mortgage rates, car loans, or credit cards are now facing higher borrowing costs or outright denials for new credit. It creates a vicious cycle. Student loan problems compound into broader financial difficulties, affecting everything from car purchases to home ownership prospects. And unlike other types of debt, student loans can't be discharged in bankruptcy. This burden follows 30-year-olds regardless of their financial circumstances. The ripple effects of this credit damage are enormous. A 100-point drop in your credit score can mean paying thousands more in interest over the life of a car loan, tens of thousands more on a mortgage, higher insurance premiums, even difficulty renting an apartment, all because of a student loan servicer's administrative error or a payment that got lost in the system. Not because of irresponsibility, because of a broken system. One more piece of the puzzle: transportation. The average new car payment is now over $700 a month. The average used car payment is over $500 a month. For 30-year-olds already stretched thin by rent and student loans, this is often the third leg of the financial stool that breaks. Many 30-year-olds are driving cars they can barely afford because they need reliable transportation to get to the jobs that pay their rent. But the car payment eats up money that could be going towards savings, debt reduction, or literally anything else. It's a cruel math problem. You need a car to get to work. You need work to pay for the car. And the car itself is the reason you can't save enough to buy the next car without another loan. This is why so many 30-year-olds find themselves in multi-year car loan cycles. They reach the end of a 5-year loan. The car is worth less than they paid, and they need a new one. The cycle repeats. The payments never end. So let's put all of this together. What does the average 30-year-old's financial life actually look like? Do the math on that. 40 plus 10 plus 15 plus 10 plus 10. That's 85%. Before any savings, before any retirement contributions, before any entertainment, before anything that makes life worth living. The average 30-year-old has about 15% of their income left for everything else. That's not a savings rate. That's a survival margin. And here's the really frustrating part. This isn't because 30-year-olds are spending lavishly. This isn't avocado toast and fancy coffee. This is rent. This is student loans. This is a reliable car. This is food. The cost of being an adult has outpaced the income of being an adult. And nobody talks about it. Instead, we get told to skip the lattes, to cancel Netflix, to walk everywhere. As if that would somehow free up the thousands of dollars needed for a down payment. Let me lock this in with a quick recap. The average 30-year-old has about $42,000 in student loan debt. That's what they still owe, not what they borrowed. Many 30-year-olds on income-driven repayment plans are watching their loan balances grow, not shrink. Michael's debt went from $65,000 to $68,500 after 3 years of payments. The average 30-year-old carries about $4,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest. Minimum payments turn a $4,000 debt into $8,000 paid over 18 years. The median retirement savings for someone in their 30s is about $14,000. Financial experts say it should be $60,000. The gap is $46,000. Only 14% of Americans have $100,000 in savings. More than half can't cover a $1,000 emergency. Home ownership for under 35s has dropped to 37%. The average home price is over $500,000. A 20% down payment is $100,000. Most 30-year-olds don't have $10,000. The average 30-year-old spends 40% of their income on rent, 10% on student loans, 10 to 15% on transportation, That's 65% before food, utilities, or anything else. So here's the thing. If these numbers made you feel worse about your situation, remember, you're not alone. You're not failing. The system is failing you. If these numbers made you feel better, congratulations on beating some pretty depressing odds. Either way, understanding where you actually stand compared to your peers is the first step toward making better financial decisions. Because pretending everything is fine while drowning in debt isn't a strategy. It's just expensive denial. You can't fix what you don't measure. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And you can't beat the game if you don't know the score. The financial landscape for 30-year-olds is brutal, but ignoring it won't make it less brutal. Understanding it gives you options. Options to negotiate. Options to prioritize. Options to make different choices. If this video helped you see where you really stand, hit that like button. It helps more people find it. And subscribe if you want more videos about the real numbers, not the fantasy, the reality. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, where do you stand compared to these numbers? Better? Worse? About the same? What's the one number that surprised you the most? Be honest. Be specific. Let's fill the comments with real stories. Maybe your comment will help someone else realize they're not alone. I read them. I'll be in there. Let's figure this out together. Thanks for watching. Know where you stand. Build from there. See you in the next one.